for being here. Welcome back after the nice summer break. It is the August 18th, 2025 BPAC meeting. We'll start with introductions. I am Joe Caruso, the current chair of BPAC and the chair of the policy committee. And move this way.
William Smith, vice chair and on the outreach committee.
Celeste Bravo Taylor, what are we, the head of the planning committee.
Amy Wabike, new to the BPAC this year.
Chip Thrasher, Outreach Committee.
Ethan Gallagher, Outreach Committee.
Michael Dunn, Planning Committee.
Brittany Bryan, Policy Committee.
Brian Thomas, Chair of the Outreach Committee.
Jeronica Goodwin, Planning Committee.
Will Shoemaker, staff.
Barbara Godwin, staff.
Okay, thank you. And the first item, it will be the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting on June 16. I'll give everybody a second to make any last minute reviews, and I will ask for a motion to approve.
I have one change. I'm listed as the vice chair, and I just want to make sure I'm not the vice chair.
Oh. Yes, that is good catch there. Yeah, that should be swapped with Mr. Smith on the following line. Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve with said change.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. And then the next item will be public comment. A chance for, there are many friendly faces here tonight, so we'll take anybody that wants to make public comment. We would like to, just around 3 minutes of time per person, and whoever wants to come up first, go ahead. And if you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, BPAC staff. I'm Mike Porvosnik. I live at 6308 Oak Brook Circle in District A, and I'm here with Oaks and Spokes as the advocacy chair to talk to you about 3 important code and policy changes that Oaks and Spokes would like to see some support on in the future. Some of these changes I'll talk about are very small, but they make a huge impact across our city. The first one, across Raleigh right now, cars can park as close as 12 feet to crosswalks. And 25 feet at an intersection. We would propose to make these changes to 30 feet at each location to improve sightlines and visibility. This extra distance may seem small, but it makes a big difference. It improves sightlines for drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists, and it prevents crashes before they happen, so we could be proactive instead of reactive. It means kids walking to school or someone biking to work are visible when they enter an intersection. A clear example of this in practice is on Salisbury Street at the corner of Salisbury and Hargett. There's a beautiful painted box before the intersection that prevents parking, but on the next block as you go towards the courthouse, parking's allowed almost all the way up to the stop bar. And the sight lines there are clearly different. It's a low-cost, high-impact change that directly increases safety and allows Raleigh to set the standard for other municipalities. And as we start to share the road more frequently around Raleigh, it's more important now than ever to ensure our local codes align with state codes. Raleigh's code currently allows drivers to pass a cyclist at a distance of 2 feet, but state law has a minimum of 4 feet. So we would like to see that changed in the city's municipal code to match state policy. Aligning Raleigh's code with this statute removes confusion, gives police a clear standard, and doubles the protection for people biking. 4 feet is the difference between a near miss and a serious crash. This update is simple. It's about safety, consistency, and making sure the rules on our books match the standards we already know save lives. And speaking of standards, matching across the city, my final point here is about parking in the bike lane. Right now, traffic schedules are kind of competing with city code. There's some confusion about where you're allowed to park in the bike lane, where you're not allowed to park in the bike lane. And this confusion isn't just with residents, it's with staff, it's with the police. I've ran into some police who aren't sure of where you can park and where you can't park. So enforcement is lacking because there's confusion everywhere. And part of the city code has an exception for parking on Sundays for church service. And it's our view that this exception is clearly, against Raleigh's values of inclusion. It has an exception for one group of people. If your service is on Saturday, you're not in that exception. If you have any other faith-based rather than Sunday is kind of excluded from that. So we'd like to see that exception removed. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'll just make a comment that I totally agree on the intersection visibility, and I would say that we, BPAC just reviewed a text change in that vein for mid-block, or I forget exactly what the official title is, but as part of the text change, it will start to institute curb extensions and bulb outs at intersections. So hopefully that will become more, it will become part of the standard design pattern. Just, it can be a follow-up item, but I guess for staff, can we get some, at least for my own knowledge, like some clarity potentially from the attorney's office on the sort of difference between the state law and city code? I would presume state law would trump any city policy, but just as a follow-up item.
Is a route to discuss this to policy committee, or would you like that to be a staff report out?
Just a staff report.
Okay.
Just like a general high-level summary of what's going on there.
Joe, I have another question on that as well. Does the text change apply to, any existing intersection, or is that only for newly constructed?
That would be for new build.
Yeah,
I totally agree that, like, I was just mentioning that as part of like a larger program. There's certainly a lot that needs to be done with existing intersections, but at least sort of going forward, any kind of new development or retrofits would kind of have that, at least in theory, by default, is sort of the point.
I just feel like we need that throughout the city.
For sure, yeah.
And maybe Vision Zero and Sean Driscoll can look at this as well, because that seems like an issue that, this applies to every road user, not just drivers, but, pedestrians, cyclists, everybody.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue tends to be, or I guess the biggest thing would be like installing some type of delineator, like flexi post or something, to sort of keep people back off of the intersection. Because I know a lot of places it's signed with like no parking, like you're like but
No, there needs to be a physical
right without some type of
installation.
delineator, or some places are signed in more kind of trafficked areas. But yeah, like I agree, like it'd be something to sort of make note of or to work on is how we can sort of tactically, maybe as part of Vision Zero, like look at where we can put up these flexi posts in sort of the high impact areas. Okay, is there anyone else for public comment?
Hi, my name is Jared. I am with Oaks and Spokes. think most of you all know that already. I'll echo a lot of what my colleague was saying. Also, to add to the point, I think we're coming up on a year since we and staff brought to council conversations about how to mitigate parking in a bike lane and what sort of infrastructure we can implement. Since that conversation a year ago, none of that has come through, and I'm not sure if we're any closer on better enforcement or better kind of proactive build-outs to help with that. So I'd love to see that kind of get pushed a little bit further down the road. But that also brings me to a second point on the delivery of projects. I think that isn't, to no surprise, a sore point for a lot of people who are biking, walking, or using scooters, one wheels around Raleigh, is that sometimes these projects are priority projects, or just some of the other smaller projects are just taking so long to see the light of day. I mean, it's planning season in the city of Raleigh, and I keep getting emails about all these different plans. I'd love to see some projects actually hit the ground. To put like a little bit of an anecdote on that whole idea, in 2018, Oaks and Spokes did a pop-up cycle track on State Street. And maybe some of you were there, maybe you attended, maybe you volunteered and helped out. There's an elementary school right near where that pop-up cycle track is. If you think about that, a fifth grader who was in that school at that time, who could have benefited on a safe passage from their house in one of the nearby neighborhoods, is now starting their first semester at college. Or if they're not going to school, they're now a working adult. And people are living entire lifetimes before we actually even see anything from these plans hit the streets. So I'd love to see this commission really not challenge, but maybe encourage and support our city staff on how, when this new plan comes out, how we can actually see delivery on substantial infrastructure, but even small things that would make big differences as well. Maybe shoot for a fun goal like 50 miles in 5 years or something like that. I think that would go a really long way, and I think it would reinstill community trust with Raleigh residents who are out there walking, biking, who don't have a choice, who make the choice, however you want to look at it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would definitely agree that it would be very beneficial to figure out a way that we can sort of deliver projects in a much more timely and sort of tactical manner. I think everybody on the commission would agree with that. Yes. Councilor Harrison.
I just wanted to say hello. Hi, Joe. I'm really glad to see you being chair here of BPAC, and I wanted to introduce myself to everyone in case I haven't met you before. I'm City Council Member Jane Harrison. I'm the liaison to this board, so if you ever need anything, if I can be of help, please reach out. I know I hear from several of you on many topics. Keep doing so, and I just appreciate all your work here. It really matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to come up for a public comment? No? Okay. The next item of business will be the presentations. The first one is the Wayfinding Artist in Residence project from the Raleigh Arts Department.
Hey, all. I am, not used to presenting, so bear with me. I am Katie Stewart, and I am the City of Raleigh's first sign shop artist in residence. It centers around wayfinding, and I'm collaborating with the Raleigh Transportation Sign Shop using reclaimed materials, and basically they're trash. So a little about the residency. This is a year-long collaboration with Raleigh Arts and the City Transportation Sign Shop. The goal is to create artistic wayfinding that helps people move through downtown while also creating culture, community, and sustainability. As you can see, this is the materials that we're dealing with, and a lot of the incredible old traffic signs, parking signs, and all the reflective materials. So, and these are just examples that were in the RFQ. This is a pilot program, so I'm really, really excited to cut my teeth and be working with the city of Raleigh. So a little bit about me. I am a graphic designer by trade and public artist with 15 plus years of experience. My background is in environmental graphics, fabrication, and especially using reclaimed materials that are landfill diverted. I worked with festivals like Dreamville and Hopscotch, local organizations such as Dix Parks Conservancy, and big clients like Nike. So I'm very excited to be able to invest in my community. I care deeply about walkability. I'm a longtime cyclist and an advocate for all, things Raleigh, basically. So the residency is grounded in public input. Over the past few months, I've led surveys, workshops, and led focus groups, including local administrators, government officials, museum attendants, and the community, going to community events such as Arts on the Block, going where people are, and also conducting my own groups and inviting them in. So we've had a lot of participation with the online survey and more than 80 written comments. People were very clear about what they feel is missing in downtown wayfinding. So this is just some of the materials. We had an Oaks and Spokes event. Thanks for having me, y'all. And we used landfill diverted signed vinyl scraps for safe pedestrian like keychains and tokens, and even stickers put on helmets, which was really fun to get people excited about the materials that I get to work with that I'm already very excited about. So this is just some of the findings on the community engagement survey. The survey results showed 3 big themes: a lack of neighborhood identity, unclear destinations and amenities, and basically that downtown Raleigh has, a little ways to go with pedestrian-friendly options, and just kind of, I want to bring life to the city. People also said that they want wayfinding to be interactive, playful, green, and celebratory of Raleigh's culture. So the challenge is, how do we combine function with creativity? And these are just some of the findings and of the survey. So how we'll solve it. My strategy is to approach it as draw in, engage, and inform. That means 3 to 4 tier 1 landmark installations. They're going to be big interactive pieces that act as anchors. They're going to inspire joy and really bring people to downtown, kind of as a drawing. People will be posting about it on social media, therefore, making that tidal wave. And then there's going to be a series of tier 2, like breadcrumb style signs that connect people with those anchors. Each piece will also integrate walking times, maps, and QR codes to help residents and visitors explore and have a digital counterpart to keep with them on their phone. And most importantly, all this will use landfill diverted materials from the sign shop, tying art and environmental stewardship. So these are some of the locations that I'm suggesting. They're kind of all across kind of like the core of downtown. And then for the visual themes and approaches in terms of problem solvings with these public artworks. The overall visual strategy will be to go vertical, and why is that the art will not block pedestrian right away. It'll stay making sure that the sidewalks are ADA accessible and becomes an eye-catching beacon for people to, I guess, follow. Okay, and then each of the tier 1 public art landmarks will have a certain kind of installation or exhibition theme, all using sign shop trash, basically. So these are kind of like the concept directions, and this is past works of mine using a parking garage mirror. It's honestly a really fun selfie station. I hate that I have to even say that word, but I like activating spaces and inspiring joy and wonder in really creative ways. Another visual theme will be using wind-powered motion as a really fun interactive element. We're all familiar with the Shimmer Wall by Thomas Sayer. I think that that's going to be really fun, and it's just a way of harnessing natural elements to bring joy and wonder, and really just like using native species and plants, flora, fauna, and fungi, just celebrating all this like really rich, lovely, things that we have in North Carolina. Another visual theme that I'm going to explore with another one of the landmarks is light and shadows. So really harnessing the natural elements to just create some really, really cool things. Another one is what I'm calling a virtual postcard. It's really just centering the community, and that's one of my main driving and inspiring inspirations in public art, is that it's a gift to the community, and it's for and featuring the public. And then especially with pedestrian signage, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Walk Your City by Matt Tomasulo. It's a really, really incredible and inspiring guerrilla wayfinding exploration. There's actually some signs still around in Raleigh. It was really fun to see that happen organically, and it was just like so fun, especially because we're a car-centric society, and just really kind of like bursting people's preconceptions of how far it is to actually walk somewhere. So I am basically gamifying exploring Raleigh, and so each of these public art landmarks in the tier 1s will have the supplementary signage, also with the QR code, so that people can really see the incredible amenities that are nearby and just feel really empowered to explore and enjoy the city. And this is just some inspiration behind the landmark map that I will be creating. This is the QR code that leads to the digital counterpart, so that people feel empowered and inspired. And that's it, y'all. I'm really excited to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a longtime listener, first-time caller with y'all. And just, yeah, thanks so much for doing all you do for the city. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And I'll open it up to questions. Mr. Smith first.
Thank you very much for that presentation, and it's a very exciting thing to see. And as a longtime pedestrian myself, I haven't driven for 35 years or so. It's great to see the city doing something that, as a pedestrian, when you come across it, you say, hey, somebody's thinking of me. And it's nice to see things that say to a pedestrian or a cyclist, thank you for being here and not driving. You remember the thank you for not smoking signs you used to see everywhere. Well, a thank you for not driving sign, I think, is great. Kind of a reward for pedestrians, and the more, the better, I think. I did have a question. The reason I'm not a driver is because I have a vision impairment. And urban centers have a larger number of people with vision impairments for obvious reasons, because there's services around. It's much easier to live in Raleigh than it is to live in, Dunn, or, someplace that's a little smaller and not as well equipped. So I'm wondering if you had thought any about how you can make this accessible to the people in the city who are not visually capable of participating in some of this stuff. If there's anything with sound or texture, or even, I know you mentioned QR codes where you can take your phone and point it. Is there a way to have a pedestrian who's using a wayfinding app, a blind pedestrian? Will that be, like, here's something, you're walking by it right now, and if you go over there and do this or that, interact with it, and somehow it'll reward you by giving you a sound or a texture to feel or something like that. I was just wondering if you'd had if there's an element of that at all in any of this. Thank you again.
No, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you bringing that up. I have experience working at the North Carolina Museum of Art for environmental graphics. And so I've been fortunate enough to attend workshops on how to make things more accessible to just everyone in the community. I think that's really, really important. That's one of the things that really invigorates me and inspires me to just be dedicated to public art. I'm so excited to explore the digital counterparts in that, and also having the materials. I know that there's different elements that we can do that are tactile. I want everything to be touched, and just interacted with. I think that since I'm dealing a lot with metal fabrication, that it will be very durable and safe to deal with. But I'm just so excited to explore and inform and learn, especially with the digital counterparts, maybe just different ways to integrate if people are using screen readers or things like that, or just some sound element. I would love to explore that, and I really appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah.
Hi, comment and a question first. Thank you so much for this presentation. This is exciting. I love anything that creates a meaningful sense of community and a reason for people to stop and interact with each other, because we're so, in our boxes and busy. So it's nice to have a break from that. You mentioned the QR codes on the website. Is that going to be a city site? Is that going to live somewhere else? And how long will this project be in place, and will that site stay up in kind of perpetuity?
So it's going to be very closely linked to the existing website that is, driven by Downtown Raleigh Alliance. That's been a really incredible resource, and they've also been just so informative and generous with their time, and also getting me in touch with different people around the city. This is just the first year, so I'm so excited to establish systems and things that can be maintained. I think that that's really important, and I don't want this to just, brick itself after the year that I'm here. I want it to live on, especially, with metal fabrication that's going to last quite a while, and also just have those components. I'm excited to have it be a system, if that makes sense. Obviously, this is kind of still beginning stages, but I can't wait to just dig in. Hopefully that answers your question.
Great presentation. I love the idea of the gamification of the city. It's a fun thing to think about just when exploring your local area. In the survey, you said the respondents cited a lack of neighborhood identity, which I can certainly resonate with. There's a lot of good neighborhoods within even the core downtown of Raleigh, but maybe some overlooked ones. Do you envision, and I know you're talking about systems here, so it could be a future question as you're building that out, but do you envision neighborhoods being able to kind of petition or kind of lobby for some sort of either wayfinding to their neighborhood or wayfinding from their neighborhood to a point of interest, or something like a project that just boasts the historical nature of their neighborhood and kind of points out, here's what happened 50 years ago, or something along those lines?
Thank you so much. I am really, really excited to kind of kickstart that process. So I know that there's a large amount of really gorgeous historical buildings and things like that, and it does make navigating around, especially as a pedestrian or a visitor, a bit confusing. So I'm excited to kind of just make people aware of the different districts, celebrate their uniqueness and what makes them incredible, and also just teach people about them. I think especially with the hopefully many more artists and residents with this, will be able to include in their community engagement, really be able to gather and draw and inspire and just celebrate, and also just be informed and have people submit, because once people know that this exists, I think they're going to be really, really enthusiastic to kind of just join in. I think that it's going to create a lot of community pride, and I can't wait for that to get kicked off. Thanks.
as others have said, thank you for this presentation. That was great. I appreciate it. I'm a big fan of Jeff Speck. He's a city planner who wrote Walkable City. So one of his rules for a good walk is that it's interesting. So I'm glad we're adding more interest. Another rule that he has is that it's comfortable. So I'm wondering if you're thinking about ways to make walking more comfortable for people. Primarily, we live in Raleigh. It's hot here. So maybe incorporating some shade ideas. I just wanted to throw that out. So thank you.
I love that idea. I think that especially in an urban environment, the pavement and the metal buildings can really amplify an unpleasant experience. But one of the things that I love deeply about Raleigh is that we have so many green spaces. I can't wait to, especially in the vertical themes, if there's flowering plants or let's say a giant coneflower or something like that, could be really fun ways to kind of just facilitate this really beautiful placemaking and kind of enjoyment, and also having people kind of just stop and enjoy. So yeah, I love shade. Thanks.
Anybody else? No? All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, y'all.
And the next item will be a staff report from, I guess, Ms. Godwin on the active mobility plan update with the policy recommendations.
Do it. You can if you want to, yeah. For introductions. Okay, good evening, commissioners. I'm Barbara Godwin, the Bike and Pedestrian Program. I'm joined by Margaret Tartala, who leads our long-range planning group in the Transportation Department. We're working very closely together on our active mobility plan. Excited to share some brief updates with you this evening, so I'll get straight into it. So we're going to go through the project schedule very quickly, and then we'll touch on the different components that are included in our network for the bike side of the active mobility plan. We're going to talk mostly about policy recommendations tonight, and we have some recommended next steps for you all to get into those policy recommendations a little bit deeper after this evening. So just some background info. We've been before you several times this year, so this is probably repeat information. We're working very closely with our partners at NCDOT through the Multimodal Planning Grant to complete our updates to the active mobility plan. We're working with Tool Design as our consultant team to complete this work. So a review of our schedule. So kind of jumping back last year, we've gone through a data collection phase of existing conditions. We had our first public open house at the end of last year in December. Throughout the kind of first few months of this year, we put together our draft project recommendations. I'm sorry, that should say 2025. January to May instead of 2024, and presented those recommendations at our June open house, which was our second major touch point. So we're currently in the policy and programming phase where we're developing these drafts in partnership with our consultants and all of our stakeholders. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, and we hope to be in front of City Council in October to present all of these recommendations in a final form. So getting very close to wrapping this project up. So just as a reminder of the different components that this active mobility plan included in our scope. So we had our project and kickoff last year, did an assessment of existing conditions, had several touch points along the way, both in person and online. And now we're at the 4, 5, and 6 points, putting together our finalized recommended network and project prioritization, as well as our implementation plan. So all of this will be included in our final plan.
I know there is a heavy interest on the implementation piece, so I just wanted to provide a snapshot of the implementation plan that will be included in our final report. So it will include a best practices review, recommendations on policies, programming, partnerships, and funding opportunities. It'll also include interim design recommendations, which are really some more quick build opportunities. And then all of that will kind of be bundled into an action plan. So we talked about this at the May retreat, but just wanted to provide this as a refresher. So the different scoring criteria that really help to inform our priority pedestrian network and our priority bike network. So you can see a lot of these qualities and criteria were the same for both the pedestrian network and the bike network, those being equity, safety, transit access, and destination density. The only difference really in the criteria is the bike network included supportive land uses and multimodal connectivity to inform that network. These were all informed by stakeholder engagement and conversations with boards and commissions like BPAC, the Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities, the Environmental Advisory Board, Greenway Committee, and so on. So this is really just a breakdown of the different types of networks that will be included in that final report. So this is not, you know, the last time or necessarily the first time that you'll see this priority network on the right. So just kind of to talk through those two different networks that will be in that final plan. The 2025 comprehensive bike network will really look at our long-range bike plan from a network standpoint. So it's really going to build on that 2016 comprehensive network that was done about 10 years ago. It will also be updated to include sections that have been defined in the UDO and the street plan since that time. So again, that's looking at more of our long-range plan for our bike network. The priority bike network, which we have presented at the June open house and since then through our second online survey. This is really looking at a series of different bike projects. So we're looking at building off of our existing network through upgrading existing facilities and making them better and safer, in addition to expanding off of our existing network and building new protected and neighborhood connections. So I know the map is probably difficult to see, but it's really meant to just provide you kind of a reminder of what these images looked like from our summer engagement. This information will all be available in an online forum as we wrap up development of the plan. So we'll publish all of this in a way that you can see it and look at it more closely in September. I also do want to highlight that our priority bike network will include a big jump list of projects. So these are really going to be focused on what are those projects that we are going to immediately work towards implementation on over the next 3 to 5 years, and they're going to be what we focus on. So we'll have more information to share on that list in September, but did want to kind of provide that vision for what we are thinking for implementation. So lastly, we're going to focus on our 6 different policy categories. So we have 37 very lengthy policies that are included in your agenda packet. So I think I see a few of you have found this list already. I will also share an online version so that you can see this list more closely and zoom in. So for the purpose of this evening, I really just wanted to provide a snapshot of the 6 different categories different policies and programming that we are in the process of developing. So those are data collection and reporting policies, education policies, encouragement and enforcement policies, equity policies, interdepartmental and planning policies, and then policies around schools and safe connections around schools. So the number that is listed beside each of these correlates to the number of policies that each category has. So all of these policies were informed through a combination of public feedback over the last year, as well as a series of stakeholder interviews with targeted groups to kind of better inform these 6 topics. In addition to that, a lot of the feedback that we've gotten just through conversations like this with boards and commissions have also helped to inform these categories and the specific policy items that go with them. So we're not going to force you to read all 37 of these tonight. We wanted to give you some time to digest and take these home with you. So we do recommend sending this discussion around the draft policy recommendations into BPAC's policy committee. So what we would recommend is that everyone takes time to review this list in more detail and share any questions, comments, or concerns that you have with the chair of the policy committee, which is Mr. Caruso, prior to that meeting, which is next Tuesday, the 26th. And that meeting's at 4 p.m. So that's our recommendation for this evening. Before I close out and take questions, I did want to just leave you with some questions to consider. As you're reviewing this list that is very in-depth and probably a little overwhelming, these are some of the things that I would think about as you are, reading them, making notes, and thinking of different questions. How did these policy recommendations support your goals as a commission and as a BPAC commissioner? What could be changed to strengthen these recommendations? Do these recommendations align with BPAC's work plan? So again, feel free to ask yourself these questions and more. Just wanted to give you a different framework of thinking to kind of take all this information in. So that concludes our presentation this evening. We're happy to take questions, and as I mentioned, we'll send out a digital version of the list that's included in your packet.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll open it up to questions, but like Ms. Godwin mentioned, we spoke about earlier, and we're definitely going to intend to have a longer form, in-depth conversation as part of policy next week on Tuesday upstairs. Anybody in the commission is welcome to join. You don't have to be on policy committee to swing by. Anybody that can or wishes to attend in person, feel free. If not, you can send me an email with any questions or comments or any type of information, and then I'll put all those together. And then the idea will be that we will pull all of that together, and then we'll vote on this for approval at our next meeting next month. So my only question is just about the big jump categorization that you mentioned. Is that basically like the high priority of the priority, or is that like projects that we know are going to be sort of larger projects that need longer to implement, or is it both, or like what types of projects are we sort of categorizing under this?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Margaret Tartalla. So the big jump is really focused on the next 3 to 5 years. So Tool is considering the feasibility, especially like existing pavement width and other considerations, but these are projects that should be doable. Now, They'll still depend on funding and authorization from council, but that is the goal.
Okay.
Can I ask a related question? I'm sorry. to
Yeah,
interrupt it.
yeah, that's all I had. Go ahead.
Are these projects, thank you for the presentation, I do appreciate the information. Is leveraging existing network elements part of the criteria to establish a project as a big jump project? So in other words, you know, we fill a gap here and there are network effects as a result of this project. Does that make sense?
Yes, they are not all. Some are upgrades to existing facilities, but some would be new facilities that would fill a gap.
Hi, thank you guys for the update. It's really helpful. Is it possible to get a copy of the deck? Yes. Okay, that would be great. And then you mentioned with implementation some quick build projects. Where are those going to fall in? And are those possibly going to be utilizing maybe community partners to help them get off the ground? Or are those all completely owned 100% start to finish by the city?
So when I was referencing the quick build, I think that was this slide, the interim design recommendations. So the implementation plan interim design recommendations was more so referencing tools for quick builds, so not specific quick build projects themselves. But I think there's opportunity to identify where those are as we refine this big jump network and take a look at the remaining priorities in the plan. I apologize for that. But yeah, that was more so referencing the tools for quick build projects.
Okay. But then kind of back to that second part, and I guess for any of these, you know, of course, funding is always an issue, bandwidth, all of that. Is there opportunity to connect with community partners to do some of that lifting, or is it going to be city-owned start to finish?
I think there is opportunity for both. I mean, we're certainly going to be looking at delivering projects through our CIP, but we're interested in partnership opportunities, specifically with some of those more tactful style projects, and definitely would look to our partners outside of the organization to help with that.
Thank you.
I have two quick questions for you guys. Thank you so much for your presentation again. I've had a little bit more time to process some of these. Happy to see that the bikeway-related parking enforcement is sort of on the list already. And it makes me wonder if when you guys come to us with the sort of big jump project list, if there could also be a project or sort of a list of items that are not building, like built related, and therefore could potentially be implemented much sooner. And it'd be neat to see some of those things that we could sort of get rolling and be a little bit more strict about more quickly. And then I may have missed it on this list, but are sidewalk improvements and gap coverage also somewhere in the mobility plan update? And/or our sort of like new plan for sidewalk connections in there?
Right. So as part of this update, city staff have been working in-house to do a sidewalk prioritization. Barbara showed the criteria and the overlap between the criteria we use between the sidewalks and the bike network. We're working on what the implementation piece looks like right now. I think it'll probably mirror that sort of big jump idea where we look at projects we could get on the ground quickly, or that we think we could get on the ground quickly, and what that looks like over the next 5 years. That will be part of it. We're still working out some of the formatting for that.
So as far as sidewalks, I guess sort of an implementation or a logistical question. Do we still have to like effectively burn down the petition process projects still? Are those still sort of in the pipeline? Like, do those have to go first? Like, I guess what is the status of those projects? I haven't heard on those recently.
Yes. So the sidewalk petition program was disbanded in April 2024 by council. They are having a work session tomorrow about how to move forward with the assessment program, which is sort of the catch-all term for street improvement and sidewalk project programs, and what to do about the projects that were in the pipeline for that. So I don't have a response for you right now, but they are discussing it.
And then on the map, there was a color for what's referred to as priority existing link. What does that represent? Is that just sort of to give context on where we would be connecting to existing facilities, or does that imply some type of improvement, or what does that represent? The dark green or whatever that is?
Yeah, I know. I need to probably check my memory. I'm almost positive it's existing greenways for the most part.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, one of them is certainly like a side path that follows a noose up. So like that's an existing facility, I can tell. Okay. And then,
So I'll just add, I think the idea there is to show where we're providing a connection to a facility that's hard to get to right now.
okay. And then, is priority upgrade, are those all going to be sort of behind the curb facilities, or I guess I should say like separated facilities, or does some of that include it? Like, is there a type like facility component to that, or is it more of a broad category for some type of improvement?
So I think most of these are calling for vertical separation, where we have the priority upgrade. There might be some that need a buffer, a painted buffer added as well, but I would have to go back and look at all of these. But for the most part, I would say vertical separation.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I appreciate that you've given some guidance to the policy committee for going through this, but I don't want to speak for the policy committee, but I sort of am not clear on what additional input you're looking for here, because I look down this column of recommendations and I'm just like, yes, 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 yes. So this has been a long process and a lot of work. I appreciate that, but what else needs to be drawn out from the policy committee to move this to the next step? Because I would vote yes for this right now if it came to that. So.
Thank you for that. Glad to know we're on the right track. If that is how most of you feel, I would say look for things that are missing as opposed to refining what's there. And there may not be anything missing from your perspective, but I think if we're looking for anything, it's, does this align with what you think it should look like? And if not, why? What's missing, or what should be tweaked is kind of what we're looking at, either affirmation or revisions to help us get more on the right track.
Okay. And my second question, maybe this is more for Margaret, but do we have a non-active mobility plan for the city? Do we have a transportation plan for drivers that goes through a similar process and collects public input on, an overarching kind of thing?
So for the city, our long-range transportation plan is the street plan. So that's part of the comprehensive plan. It'll be, well, that's a long story because we're about to start the comprehensive plan update process, and I'm honestly not sure what will happen to it. But for the city right now, our comprehensive transportation plan is the street plan. We also participate in a lot of transportation planning is done at the regional level. So we're part of an organization that does regional transportation planning called Campo. I hope most of you are familiar, but we participate and work with them when they do the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So that's the regional transportation plan, and we provide local input on that. And that is for vehicles, people biking, people walking, transit, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Thanks very much for the very thorough presentation. I did have a couple of questions that are kind of on the periphery, and some of these I've asked before. One of the main issues that a pedestrian in this city has is drivers at an intersection who are going to take a right turn on red, or maybe there's nothing but, a stop sign, and they'll pull out, and into what would be a crosswalk if there was any markings there. The city has a very almost complete lack of street markings for those certain kinds of intersections, T intersections in particular. This is not a project, located, attached to a geographical location. It's everywhere in the city. It's a systematic improvement. Are there any plans to look at that kind of thing, where, basically we have 1,000 intersections that could use paint, for lack of the proper term, and it just demarks the area that it's intended for people to cross, and at least the driver has an opportunity to make the decision that they're going to ignore it, as opposed to being able to ignore it because there's nothing there. There's that. There's accessible pedestrian signals, which, there are lots of them in the city that have been installed recently, but, you may have 3 in a row and one on either end or one in the middle that doesn't have APS. And if you're a disabled pedestrian and you get to that point, you're basically using traffic sounds, to determine when it's okay to cross. So the paint and the APS, and also I think lighting, like all of the city's lighting is street lights. They're all 30 feet up in the air, and there are a lot of places where the canopy has grown so that the street lights maybe hit the street, but the sidewalk is in the dark. So you have people who are trying to cross at different places, and I've mentioned that a couple of times, and the solution was call us and we'll come and cut the tree down. Well, I don't really want that because in the daytime, the same shade that is, keeping me from sweating to death. So pedestrian lights, or even call them bicycle lights or active mobility lights, human scale, below the canopy, so that you don't have to cut the tree down. Those are 3 areas that I would think of as kind of system-wide improvements that, wouldn't have a project attached to them. Just you would approach it maybe 10 a year or 15 a year or 25 a year, whatever. Just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Sure. So first, I'll highlight 2 policies that we are or have been suggested as part of the list you got today. And one of those is focused on APS and installing APS throughout the city. And in fact, I think a combination of our Vision Zero and maintenance teams are working with our ADA coordinator to install APS and to prioritize where we're installing those sorts of crossing systems. It's a new term.
Map of that, where they are and where they're not. I think you do, don't you? Staff. You know where all the APS intersections
I have no doubt that our maintenance team tracks that. Yes. I could not pull it up for you right at this moment. Did you have something to add? The second policy I was going to highlight is there is a recommendation about no right turn on red near schools specifically. I think we feel right now that a targeted approach with that, which only touches on part of what you're talking about with marking the crosswalks themselves, but I think internally there's some agreement that a targeted approach is more appropriate at this point. One thing about pavement markings is that our maintenance budget for it is minuscule. So every time we lay a pavement marking down, there has to be an addition to the operating budget for it to get restriped in the future. So I think they're not bad ideas, and please write them down and recommend them to us. But those are sort of the discussions that we're having internally. There's a lot of us at the city that would love to do all the things like right now. But especially maintenance budget, operating budget is a definite, concern's not necessarily the word, but consideration for that, and making sure that we're getting additional budget to maintain them throughout time and not just the money to slap it down.
Yeah, I would just sort of say anecdotally that I know in the policy committee, we've sort of looked at a similar thing of adding painted crosswalks to effectively more locations, and there has certainly been an ongoing kind of concern or issue or whatever you want to categorize it as far as sort of the maintenance and funding of that. I agree that everybody should, I think everybody on this commission would probably agree that we should spend more money on that. But I think at least up to now, it seems like we're kind of struggling at some times to keep up with the existing intersections that are already supposed to be striped. So my read of it has been that, at least for right now, the sort of primary factor is sort of a funding issue.
This isn't meant to be, I'm not directing this at you, at city staff, but there wouldn't be a funding issue or maintenance issue if we needed to restripe W yellow line somewhere, or vehicle travel lane markings. I just don't see that happening, and that's what frustrates us. And I know that you're not setting the budget, and I understand that, but that would, if it was for driving, no problem. Well, you would be out there, fix those roads, put those paint markings down. And here we can only do it based on pedestrian volume, And we're trying to, you're not going to get people out walking if it's not safe to begin with, right? So that's just, from this side of the table, that's the perspective on that, the budget thing.
The reason I say it is because it's a major issue. Because what happens is, if you're a pedestrian, you get to that point and there's a big truck, over the intersection, you're not going to go into the street to walk in front of them. You walk behind them. And you are completely unseen by anybody turning, especially if they're taking a left into the road because the truck's there. And I've heard it from city staff 2 or 3 times over the years that we're really interested in doing high impact, low cost solutions. And this is I don't know anything that could be much cheaper than a couple of thermal stripes, a 25-foot. I don't know how much that costs, but
You'd be surprised.
I know things aren't free, but at the same time, it's got to be on the lower end of what things cost, and it is a big impact. There's some places where I could see it, like on Six Forks Road where I live, all of those streets could be done because people walk up and down the whole length of the street. And that's a major, major problem because there's 4 lanes of traffic and a double turn lane in the center, and 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, 55, and that's a big issue for somebody like me who coming across those constantly, one after another, and people constantly pulling over in front of it. It's just anyway. Thank you.
I would like to interject. This conversation is one that is being had currently at effectively all levels of the city of Raleigh, with the council requesting staff bring forward markings as a program to an upcoming work session. Staff in the traffic engineering department is actively preparing that. I was trying to look up the date. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but please look out for an upcoming work session where markings in the city, the budget needs, all of these things will be discussed, laid forward to council for further discussion and in future policy decisions.
I have one last question. It's hopefully a quick one. When you mentioned vertical separation for projects, what will that include? Is it just going to be bolsters, or is there a variety of types of materials?
No, we'll look at additional products, so not just plastic flexi posts, but looking at some different types of like curb stop style materials, potentially some concrete.
Okay, and just a quick follow-up. We just had this great presentation about some new art coming in. Is there any possibility of, again, doing some different projects with local communities to kind of shape what that looks like and contribute?
Yeah, I guess clarify specific to bike or pedestrian projects or
anything for like separated lanes, whether it be a combination bike pedestrian lane, but any kind of separation, because bolsters, all those things, that's great. It does its job. But if we can start to make walkability and bikeability, alternative car transportation more appealing, that's, I think, part of it, making it a nice experience so that you don't just feel like you're walking on the shoulder.
Yeah, so great feedback. We are limited in the types of devices that we can use in the right-of-way. So that is something that we have to take into consideration. Typically, those devices have to be approvable by the Federal Highways Administration. Will, correct me if I'm wrong, through the MUTCD, which is a federal traffic device manual. So that does limit our ability to look at some more artistic options.
There's always opportunities. If you look at the Salisbury Street in the dead space where that was a partnership between the Transportation Department and the Raleigh Arts group, whom you heard from earlier. So to Barbara's point, from the actual laneage, no, we can't go out there and paint happy faces in the bike lane, but certainly on the fringes, there's always opportunity, and it's something that we definitely seek out, but it comes down to the dollars and cents, where it makes sense and where we can afford to get that.
Well, I guess that's why I keep going back to opportunities for community partnerships, because equity is an issue, but if you get things sponsored and communities chipping in certain areas, that then frees up dollars in other areas too to maybe move things along quicker.
Can I ask, has the city, the MUTCD, I understand you're constrained by that. My understanding is there's a way to appeal if you want to do something that does not follow the MUTCD. Has the city ever done that?
I'm not a licensed engineer. We can defer that to...
I was just wondering if it had ever been attempted before.
It has not been attempted on projects that I've worked on.
I have sort of going back to a couple different questions around sort of driver occlusions at intersections. Is there, sort of glancing through this list here, it doesn't seem like there's anything that sort of specifically addresses that. Is there, so I guess what I'm getting at is that we could, most likely I'll add that to the list for next week, but is there anything that sort of speaks to that problem more generally from a policy perspective? I mean, I think as far as like remediation, there's probably a few different treatments that would be needed, but I think sort of at least having a higher level policy of like just sort of staking out that this is kind of a major concern and something to address would definitely be helpful. Because like, I mean, it's like I'm very much aware of like there's right next to my house near Triangle Town Center, like there's after some of the restriping on like Town Center Boulevard and Sumner. If anyone's familiar, like if you try to make the left turn there, you have to basically pull out halfway into the intersection to actually see because of how far back the actual stop bar is. I know that's certainly a problem in a lot of places around the city. I guess the question is there, are there any sort of specific policy categories here for dealing with sort of drivers pulling too far forward at an intersection, like blocking the crosswalk or sort of kind of being in a spot that they're not supposed to be, sort of?
So nothing that calls that out, but there is a policy in here that speaks to design, multimodal design guidance. And so maybe that is one that would be a good spot to fit that specific concern. It's under interdepartmental policy and planning, it's like halfway down.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone else have any comments or questions?
I had a quick question.
Okay, sure.
That's okay. Barbara, if you could, on this slide, could you clarify the difference between the two networks? I might have misunderstood you, but is the comprehensive bike network exactly what was established in the 2016 plan, and then the A&P priority network is kind of building on that, or is that not correct?
The 2025 comprehensive network includes the long-term bike network from the 2016 plan with some tweaks. So there may have been a few that were removed due to lack of feasibility or other reasons, but it's mainly the same with the exception of adding corridors that were identified through the street plan, through the TC 321 text change that was established a couple years ago that added separated facilities on all avenue streets. And so those corridors are now also included in the comprehensive bike plan. It's really more of our like long-term vision for our bike network, whereas the priority bike network in the second bullet is what are the priorities of that long-term vision and what are we going to be working towards over the next 5 years is the big jump list of projects.
So it's really like a subset of that comprehensive bike network.
Correct.
Okay,
So
okay.
all of the comprehensive network does not include, actually I'm not going to phrase it that way, that will be more confusing. The priority network overlaps with the comprehensive network, but not vice versa. That makes sense, yeah.
Just a quick question, and I'm going to play the new commissioner card here because I'm not entirely sure how things work, but you said it's going before council in the coming months. We'll make the assumption for now that council approves it. What's next? How do we kind of hit the ground running, mobilize, communicate that all these good things will be happening soon or relatively soon?
Yeah, so our implementation plan, which will be included in the final report, will be able to kind of state what these next steps are for implementation. I know from staff standpoint, we are ready to roll. We have several design contracts that are currently available to us and are in the process of kind of planning out based on these recommendations, the projects that are going to kind of immediately move into design.
So there's funding for some of these big jump projects?
For design.
For design, okay. And then actual construction depends on council allocating funding in capital improvement project budget each year, okay.
Correct, yep.
All right.
Okay, and like I said, I would ask that everybody sort of take the next week and kind of digest and internalize this. And like I said, you can send an email with any additional comments, and the policy committee will be meeting next Tuesday at 4 p.m. upstairs in person. So anybody that wants to attend is more than welcome. The next item is the chair report. I don't really have a report for this month. We've been on a little bit of a hiatus. I will say, just as a general comment, I have noticed sort of over the break that in my neck of the woods, the sidewalk projects along Spring Forest Road, New Hope Road, and Millbrook are largely complete, and those are probably a couple, maybe 3 or 4 miles of new sidewalk in an area that very desperately needed it. So I will just sort of mention that as a positive note, and look forward to many more of those types of projects hitting the street. And then sort of related, I have been sort of keeping up with some of the updates on the Go Raleigh transit side, and there seems to be a number of good things coming over the next couple of years. It should be exciting, at least it should be exciting next couple of years with BRT, knock on wood, finally going to construction for New Bern Avenue, and then other projects moving to final design. And then there's a large number of frequency increases on existing routes, and a few new bus routes also making an appearance in the next couple of years. So a lot of progress being made there, and hopefully a lot of room for integration between our transit system, transit expansion, and the bike and ped and multimodal connectivity that we work on here. And that is all for my report. I think we'll go to committee reports. Planning committee.
No items to report.
Okay. Policy committee, as I mentioned, our only open item is reviewing this mobility plan and the downtown plan. So we will be doing that on Tuesday. Outreach.
No report. We didn't meet this past month.
Okay. And moving on to staff reports. Yeah, go ahead.
I've got a couple items from a markings and a project update that BPAC has historically been interested in. So Hillsborough Street, that marking was be able to complete over this summer. So if you go ride that street, you'll see the bike lane share combination discussed and recommended by BPAC. So that was on the ground and completed. Mr. Smith has brought up the Six Forks 440 off-ramp crosswalk and the desire for that to be marked. So the unsignalized ramp has been marked, and then the city received notice from NCDOT that the signalized ramp is under construction. So the ultimate marking is on hold right now until that construction gets done, because that's completely reconfiguring that intersection. But with that completed project, the full upgrade with the marked crosswalks and everything will be installed with the completion of that third turn lane from 440 onto Six Forks Road. Brookside Drive as an update. So many of you know there's planned changes to that street to include buffered and then next step separated cycle infrastructure between Frank and Glasscock. Those plans have been submitted to the city's markings contractor with the expectation that it's completed before school started. School starts next week, and this has been one of the wettest summers that we've had on record. That has really prohibited our contractors' ability to do work on this project and a number of other markings contracts and projects that we're working on. So we're a couple weeks behind because of weather. That is still very much a priority. Still talking about that as part of our continued outreach and continued feedback is there was a request made for the center line to be restriped from Frank up to Automotive Way. Crews were able to find a couple sunny hours a couple weeks ago to do that. There were some wires that got crossed, and the crew that were in the field mistakenly restriped south of Frank Street. It was always in the plan for us to grind the faded center line that was there to recenter it. So if you're out there, you're going to see the old off-center double yellow. That was a mistake by the folks in the field, the contractor in the field. But we are still working to grind, recenter, and then add those buffer bike lanes in. So weather's been very frustrating to us getting that complete. And then from a bike project and traffic calming, we combined those construction packages to get some economies of scale. The notice to proceed on that is expected by the end of this month. That includes projects like, serendipitously, the South State Street cycle track project. One of the traffic calming projects included speed humps and then a cycle track on Grove Barton Road, the Watauga and Dandridge neighborhood bikeways, and then 14 to 15 other traffic calming projects throughout the city. So that's going to be a 12-month contract period with the notice to proceed being expected by the end of this month. If you go to RaleighNC.gov and search for traffic calming projects in construction for the traffic calming projects, or if you search current bike projects, you can get updates on the construction and status updates on those. And with that closure, progress is certainly being made with these, but based on community feedback and the folks that spoke here today, we're a group of constant evolution, of constant change. We want to continue to better our processes. And we're really excited to hear from the public and from you all that you want us to do more and faster. So we really welcome any resident and BPAC feedback on how we could do that, because we share that goal of doing more faster, being more effective at our roles to advance active transportation throughout the city. So we appreciate that support and that push. Progress is being made, but we all agree that we'd love to see it a little bit faster. So,
Thank you, Will.
Can I ask you a question about Six Forks?
Mm-hmm.
The East 440 off-ramp onto Six Forks that goes northbound. This is one of those places where I was asking about the MUTCD and an exception. I've been told that because there are two right turn lanes there, and there's a light, but there's no sign that says no turn on red, because the MUTCD says that if there are two right turn lanes, then there is no right turn on red, and they can't put a sign up because it's already illegal.
I know a site just like that does have two signs. So
It doesn't have any sign. It doesn't have a crosswalk sign. I know that's going to be done, but when they're finished, there's still going to be two right turn lanes there with nothing that tells the drivers or reminds the drivers, and maybe they don't even know that it's illegal, that they shouldn't be turning right there when it's red. That it's a no turn on red area. So, do we just have to put up with it, or because that's really the serious, dangerous thing about that particular location, the angle of everybody's looking to the left, and you've basically got the back of your head pointed directly at pedestrians crossing there, and you're pulling out. You're looking left so that you can get out before a car comes. So to me, that's like fundamental. There needs to be a sign there. You can't turn on red here. When it's red, you can't go. And I'm a little frustrated that I keep hearing that that can't happen because of the MUTCD. And it seems like there's a way to get an exemption there, and I'm a little frustrated that nobody seems pretty eager to try.
It just doesn't ring true with what I'm seeing on the ground, where the intersection of Tryon and what is it? It's South Saunders and 40170 there. There are 2 right turn lanes that have their signs, 2 signs, no right turn on red. Not that they're obeyed all the time, but they exist in reality, you know?
I don't know, I'd like to see, if it's done, the major issue in that intersection to be addressed instead of just having it all done, everything is perfect except for that one thing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I would like to see a no right on red signage go up there. I would also just sort of make a comment that it is, I know it's outside of the sort of the city's control, but sort of adding a third right turn lane there is sort of, in my opinion, potentially or likely going in the wrong direction as far as safety. And I just happened to notice on the news that there was a fatal crash at the Dartmouth intersection a couple days ago, where I think a driver ran the red signal and crashed into somebody else and was killed.
And there's no APS there.
There's. I guess my comment is that entire area continues to be a very problematic area, and unfortunately seems to be largely going in the wrong direction, despite the massive amount of private investment happening. So, I mean, hopefully we can sort of see that change at some point in the near future. And then there was also on the staff reports, there was an update about bike share.
Yep, Hannah Dos Santos is going to provide a quick update.
Hannah DeSantos, transportation staff. Yeah, we're really excited today. We launched the dockless bike share pilot. So you'll be seeing, if you drive around tonight, you'll probably see some bikes. We are prioritizing deployment at previous bike share stations. So based on data of which stations were most popular is where we're prioritizing deployment. We're going to be adding new parking areas across downtown over the next year, and so moving towards the in-street model. So you'll be seeing more of the Glenwood style parking, and we still have the reporting function via. So before we were using See-Click Fix, and now you can report scooter or bike issues via Ask Raleigh, and so. You can go to the Ask Raleigh, you click on the service catalog, and then you click on transportation mobility, and then scooters and bikes. And those reports continue to go directly to the operators. We're tracking that data as we have been since the beginning of the year. And so we really encourage you, if those questions come up, use the feature that we've created, because that's what helps us keep everything aligned. But we're really excited. We're anticipating really high ridership. There are going to be plenty of opportunities for people to learn how to use the bikes. These bikes have throttle, and so that means that it's not just pedal assist, but if you're going up a hill and you're extra tired that day, or you're not tired, just don't feel like biking, you can hit the throttle. So August 25th at Dix Park, 5 to 8 p.m., there's going to be a bike demo day. So we'll have spin bikes, line bikes. It's also yoga in the park that day. It's right by Gibson Play Plaza where the event's going to be happening. So lots of reason to visit Dix Park on August 25th. We'll also have more events happening. I'm sure you'll see more folks around the city. Just there's going to be more events to learn how to use the bikes. And yeah, if you have any concerns, you can email sharedmicromobility@raleighnc.gov. And we're going to be collecting feedback and data throughout the pilot so we can continue to refine and troubleshoot and hopefully get more people on bikes. So that's the announcement.
Okay.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
So is Ask Raleigh going to be a replacement, or is also See-Click Fix?
It's a transition. So before we were using See-Click Fix, and now we're transitioning to Ask Raleigh.
Okay. I have actually a few other things. There's been spin bikes for a while, right? Is that?
Yep. So spin bikes have been allowed on NC State campus, but they haven't been allowed on city property. So what would happen is there's a geofence, and then if you pedaled outside of NC State property, the motor would turn off. If you have really strong legs, you can go a little bit further, but that's basically why sometimes you would see bikes maybe slightly outside of the NC State border, but now students will be able to bike from campus all the way home across the city. And previous places that there weren't bike share corrals, now you'll be able to reach those places by bike share.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Quick question, August 25th at what time?
5 to 8, so 3 hours.
Thank you.
And what's the length of the pilot?
The pilot will be a year, and so it's going to run through April 2026, just shy of a year.
I'll just do a little commercial as well. The city does have a pretty good site up already. I'm sure you could just find it on Google or Raleigh NC Gov, but it has a lot of the sort of FAQ type questions there. So there's a lot of good information there that will sort of hit on a lot of the things that you're probably wondering about. And then I did notice that Oaks and Spokes is also having a little event on Friday, August 20th. So this Friday, 5 to 8 at the Bend on Morgan. So you can meet up with the folks from Oaks and Spokes on Friday as well. Any other questions?
Couple of
comments?
questions. I could probably look this up in the FAQ, but I like to go to the source. So what happens with the existing docking stations?
So we're going to be uninstalling the assets and surplusing the assets. And so we're uninstalling all of the stations and then transforming all of the current bike share stations into shared micromobility corral locations. So
how is that funded? Does the city pay for the uninstallation, or does the vendor have to do that?
that is covered in our contract.
That's covered in our contract with
The vendor.
previous vendor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how is this communicated to the Cardinal Bike Share community, like the people who kind of use those all the time? I assume that there were notices at the docking stations, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
So we've communicated through social media and other channels that we have that we like. We've communicated through different online channels to our users that this transition is coming, and that the new stations or the new system is going to be launching mid-August, which is now.
But officially closed August 12th means they just don't work anymore. Like,
That's correct.
so if you went out August 12th to use one and you didn't know you'd be kind of out of luck there.
There was a notice posted over the weekend that there were some delays, and then on the 12th we notified users that the stations were no longer accessible. The delays that we were experiencing continued.
Do we have a way of communicating with everyone who was, a member or held of the bike share system? I just feel like that I don't want to let people down if they're relying on an active transportation mode. That would be a bad move, I think, to have them come out and not being able to use it and not know.
Yeah, we're working with our comms to make sure that our communication is really wide-reaching. And so the communications we had in July received a lot of coverage beyond our usual channels, and so it was picked up by a lot of different news outlets. And so we're continuing to leverage those same channels this time around. And we anticipate that this is going to, with all of the channels that are on our schedule to broadcast this, we expect this is going to be very far-reaching.
Was there like an email notice that went out to existing bike share users, folks that had existing accounts, or some sort of notice pushed through the app?
That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
There,
I don't recall seeing anything, and I very well may have just missed it.
yeah, there will be notices that, so the channels that we were using were more public facing, and so we used all of our available public channels to communicate that this transition was coming. And certainly that's, as we continued through the transition, we will make sure that we use all available channels to continue that communication that this transition has taken place. So I think that's how I would answer that question, is if we can certainly continue to broaden the channels that we're already using to reach more folks about the transition. But I don't know if Will or Barbara, if you have anything you want to add.
No, I mean, this is great feedback. We felt very good about our communication strategy. There have been, multiple news reports, through email blasts, through listservs. But, we're hearing from you. There's always we can do more. So we've taken some really good feedback on how we can further target the use cases, as well as, continue to put out signage. So it's one of those that we feel good about our strategy, but we are a group that is always trying to improve, so we'll take this as a feedback that we missed a couple of you, and hopefully it's just a couple, but continue to push that so it's heard and understood, and people know what's happening. So you might be disappointed that you can no longer ride a Cardinal bike share, but you understand what alternatives you do have and how you can ride it.
And I guess to clarify, I'm not saying, oh, you must be. I've seen I think a lot of the public communication's been great, but I'm also thinking it's summer. People maybe haven't been in town for that. If you're a student coming back and you weren't tuned into the city social media because you were off doing something else, if you didn't get a notice, that, oh, this doesn't work, it's a little bit of a hiccup to have to rework your day for an anticipated travel option that no longer is there. I think this is a really exciting move, so I think people will be very open to it. I think it's just helpful to give people a heads up where they actually are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that.
I'm sorry, but I have one more question. I'm not trying to belabor us here, but so the update you gave us in our packet on this program, it says the dockless bike share pilot expands access to new areas of the city not previously served by bike share, but then in the first bullet under the pilot says the city will deploy dockless e-bikes from Spin and Lime across downtown Raleigh. So I don't quite see how those two statements are consistent, and maybe I'm missing something. Maybe you deploy them in one place and they naturally disperse. I mean, I don't know.
And I apologize, that may just be a misprint on my part. We will certainly be having them outside of downtown Raleigh. They'll be at all of our previous Cardinal bike share locations, but people will have the ability to access them wherever they're available throughout the city.
Right. Thank you. I don't have any more questions. So.
I just had a quick one. I think with this, hopefully, allows the ability for more people to bike, and that that's the goal. But with that, there might be some newer bikers on the roads, or even potentially the sidewalks if they feel uncomfortable biking on the roads or lack of infrastructure. Is there any way that education or rules of the road, or even these companies that are the vendors, kind of offer up to riders saying, go in a bike lane when possible, or try to avoid the sidewalks, especially if they have a throttle, can present really dangerous situations like sometimes scooters do on sidewalks. So is there some sort of policy in place there?
Yeah, so when you use the app, it will tell you the rules of the road, the rules of using the vehicle. The reason why we're doing the bike demos is to reiterate the expectations so riders are aware where they are allowed to ride and where they aren't allowed to ride. And we are going to count on public feedback, letting us know if there are areas where people are noticing that there are issues, to send us an email so we can work with the vendors to resolve that. But certainly, we're having conversations with the operators to make sure that that public education component is front and center, so folks understand the expectations that we have of them when they're using the shared micromobility vehicles.
And I'm going to jump in here and hype the active mobility plan. If you look at the recommendations in here, there are 4 of them in yellow. That it's community center bike classes, e-bike safety. Really, those are the 2 that are applicable here. So I think, yes, education plays a huge role. So help us get it right in the policy so that we can then get the resources to further push out proper bike knowledge, scooter etiquette, all the fun stuff that makes micromobility and different modes of transportation work together.
Okay. Moving on, the next item will be general board comments. Are there any board comments that have not
I have one.
happened? Yes.
I just wanted to follow up. This might be for Ms. Godwin or Ms. Dos Santos about scooters. I, in a previous meeting, asked about, since your phone GPS is a little off, making the no-ride zones a little smaller, like whatever, 10 feet, who should we talk to about that?
So that's something that we can work with the operators on, and Hannah, we can follow up with Mr. Thrasher about that, but definitely can work with Lyman's Bin.
Awesome. Thanks.
I have a couple of things to, I guess, promote or announce. July 9th, Governor Stein signed the North Carolina Public Safety Act, and one of the provisions of that act was to attach a Class 2 misdemeanor penalty to failure to yield to a blind pedestrian in a crosswalk or at an intersection. It's a $500 fine and a 90-day suspension and license. The next step would be to promote this and make sure that law enforcement is aware that they have the ability now to cite somebody with something and actually have them have to go to court and pay a fine. Also, just a little under 2 months from now, on Wednesday, October 15th, it's White Cane Safety Day in the United States. It's the 61st White Cane Safety Day. The first one was in 1964 at the White House. We did this last year, North Carolina Council of the Blind and Triangle Federation of the Blind and Southeast Raleigh Lions Club, and we had a big, helpful participation from the City of Raleigh, Department of Transportation, and the police, and ADA, and we're planning to do that again this year on Wednesday the 15th. It's at 10 o'clock at the North Carolina General Assembly. There'll be a rally there for about 45 minutes. We'll be getting a proclamation from the governor. Hopefully he will come and give it to us himself. If not, someone equally outstanding will be there to do it. We're marching at 10:45 to the North Carolina Department of Transportation across the street from the Capitol, Wilmington and Morgan. We'll spend about 15 minutes there and make a little noise, take some photos, and then it'll end up at Art Space at 215 East Davie Street. We expect 100, 150 people. I'd like to invite all of you to attend and bring people with you, and look forward to seeing you. If you have any questions, please stop me after the meeting. I'll be glad to give you some more information.
What was that date again, Commissioner?
October the 15th at 10 a.m. at 16 West Jones.
Announcements? Comments?
Yeah, I had a quick question, comment on mid-block crossings. So just over the past couple of weeks, I've noticed that a few of the mid-block crossings throughout the city are pretty faded, which mid-block crossings in and of themselves are kind of suggestions to drivers to halt, at least in my experience. And I was wondering what's the city's policy for reviewing them, repainting them, because they do offer, a very good resource for doing just that, allowing people to cross halfway through the block or, when there isn't an easy intersection to cross. So is there a policy for marking them?
Yeah, so couple things here with how you can do that, because all thermal lines are not created equal. You know, if you have cars driving over that, especially when they're turning, it's going to fade a lot faster. So edge line is going to fade slower. So we really do rely on you as a public to help us identify the locations where something is more faded than it should be. So I would encourage you and then anyone listening to submit ServiceNow tickets to help us identify these. There are national standards that require refreshment of markings at an interval that I don't have at the tip of my tongue right now, but with that is a major part of why our traffic engineering group, and specifically the signs and markings team with the focus on marking, is going to be presenting to council to share that overarching refreshment need to better inform what the budget around that needs to be, so that we can actually and properly staff, properly refresh, properly pay for it, whatever it takes to get that done, so that the type of faded crossing that you're sharing, that you've seen, becomes a rarity instead of something that is more commonplace. So that is part of that bigger discussion. So there absolutely are standards around how often and the reflectivity of what those crossings and what all thermal lines can be. But it comes back to, we need the resource to be able to do that, and we're trying to work through that with council to get that figure out where the right balance is to get that done. So
I would just add, specifically, if you go to the new Ask Raleigh service, under the transportation and mobility category in the service catalog, there's a button for transportation improvement request, and you can go in and provide details and location on a map by dropping a pin on where these specific locations are. It really helps our team to identify them.
I have another comment. I forgot. Also scooter related, also no ride zone related. Last I checked about Dix Park being a no ride zone, it was that Parks was working with staff, I think, to talk about removing Dix Park as a no ride zone. Is there an update on that?
Yeah, we are working with Dix Park, and there's going to be movement on that in the next few weeks. So we're really excited. They've been great partners, and we'll have more to share. But yeah, we're working really closely with them, and stay tuned. In the next few weeks, we'll have an announcement about that.
Thanks.
Okay. Any upcoming announcements? I'll just reiterate, like I said, Oaks and Spokes is having an event this Friday, 5 to 8, over on Morgan, for the new dockless bike system. And then there's also the event that was mentioned over at Dick's for the city is running. I believe they said 5 o'clock?
5 to 8.
5 to 8 on Monday. And does anyone else have a upcoming event? No? Okay. And final item of business is our next BPAC meeting will be September 15th, presumably in this room. And with that, that will conclude for tonight. Thank you.